to make the following announcements to show compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, known as Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Act, which was amended, supplemented Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of the State of New Jersey, passed in 1975. Notice of this meeting was given by adopting the annual schedule, location, time, and date, sending copies to the Home News Tribune, posting in Borough Hall, filing a copy with the Borough Clerk within 7 days following the annual organization meeting in this body. I now ask you to rise for an invocation given by the Council President and then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yesterday was Veterans Day, so I think we should take a moment of silence to remember the service of our veterans.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Katie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilman Wallace.
Here.
Councilwoman Rasmussen.
Here.
Councilwoman Insero.
Here.
Councilman Grazel.
Here.
Councilman Camerano.
Here.
Council President Muldoon.
Here.
I'll entertain a motion to open for the agenda session.
I move that we open the agenda session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any items for the agenda session?
Yes,
President?
Mayor, I have a couple. I'd like to move that new business consent agenda items A, B, and F be removed and addressed following the agenda session.
Okay. Any other items?
I have one, just a sort of a comment.
Okay.
I was away last council meeting, so I was unable to make the meeting. But I wanted to thank the council for approving the Complete Street policy and resolution at the last meeting. I understand there was a big crowd here, so a lot of support from residents, which was I was happy to see. Because it is an important step, I believe, and a commitment from the borough for making our roads and streets more accommodating and safer for bikers and pedestrians. So I just wanted to, since I wasn't here, just express my thanks for that.
Okay. Any other items for the agenda? Hearing none, could I have a motion to close?
I move that we close the agenda session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We now have our CFO, Rebecca Cuthbert, to speak to us a little bit about the audit and a number of other items in refinancing. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Becky.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that we have distributed to council people our 2012 annual audit. It was a comfortable, easy process with the auditors as well. I believe that the information in here shows that we're in good financial standing. We had no significant issues that were discussed at audit. As a matter of requirement with the state, you also have a corrective action plan that was distributed to you. We are required to specifically address any comments that are listed in the audit. If they were not of significant nature, they were addressed individually with a plan of action for completion and correction. And if there's any questions, I certainly would entertain it, but it was nothing that was considered, I guess, major events.
Are there any questions from the council regarding the action plan? Yes?
Mayor, I do. I don't know whether this question should be taken by Bill or Rebecca. Can you go into and explain the entry under corrections on purchasing?
On purchasing, we are currently using a requisition system. I believe a fair number of what they found as confirming orders were because you place a requisition, you really need to wait for a formal signed purchase order. In some instances, because you were allowed to do the requisition, some departments may have made their orders at that point instead of waiting for the paper. It is holding it against borough funds, so you are, in effect, you can't do the requisition without having available funds. but the formal process and how the dates run to have everything properly in order, you really have to wait for the purchase order. So there was a memo sent to every department to notify them that under no circumstances going forward would we entertain paying without it being properly through the system as a signed, approved purchase order. So I expect compliance. I don't expect this to continue.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Becky, on that issue, I know, and I saw the memo that went out from Bill to the department heads, but I know, I think sometimes some of the committees or commissions also get involved with purchase orders or hiring a consultant. I'm talking about the Historic Preservation Committee who does that. And I know, I think they're in compliance now, but we had a little period where we didn't quite understand everything. So I think we should do something so that the council members who are liaisons to those committees are aware of this too, so that we can...
Well, all of the council people got a copy of the memo, and then we gave it to all of the committees that had boxes.
Oh, you did?
at Village
Oh, good.
Hall.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
We are covering that.
Great.
Unfortunately, I don't think that there were too many from committees, because in the
Right.
past, we've always flagged those and made specific comments to people to ensure that that didn't
Right.
happen. Unfortunately, I shouldn't say we, but some departments have gotten a little lax in getting ahead of themselves. So we are correcting that.
Great, thanks.
I have a follow-up question to that. What's the typical turnaround time between a requisition order and a purchase order?
In general, we run twice a week, those updates, but we will do daily or hourly. If someone brings to our attention, I've got a burning issue, I need to take care of this right away, as long as Bill is here for third approval, we can accommodate. If in a circumstance Bill cannot be here and it's of an exigent nature, I can go directly to a purchase order. I generally never do that because we want to use the process fully with the requisition going through the system, but there really is no reason why, and if it's an emergency situation, then you have what would be considered an exemption. You have a good explanation for why you may not have had that paper at the same time, and the auditor would not penalize us for a true emergency where you had to go buy something.
However, anyone who has an emergency has to get approval from me before they go. You can't declare a routine purchase as an emergency and then go out without following the process. So we're very stringent on that, and very rarely do I approve any emergencies.
Are there any other questions about the corrective action plan?
I have a question on number 4, the senior citizen and veteran deductions.
On that issue, we have some very, very old paper on existing veterans and senior deductions, and with the arrival of our new assessor, he's taken a very active role to actually go through the file, verify, match paperwork. When the audit came, he was in the middle of doing the county tax appeals. And it's more than a job that he could undertake in a day or a week. So he has started the process to verify that absolutely all applications, all supporting documentations are in place. With our documents being moved several times till we finally are at our home now, it's possible that not everything is accumulated properly, so he's just going to recertify anything that is missing. And we've already started the process of disallowing on maybe 2, I think, instances at this point where a property was, through an executor, sold through a family, et cetera, and we go back and capture back from that official deed date if it's been on the books too long. So we are in the process of making sure that it's 100% correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Becky, why don't you continue with the...
Maybe, Mayor, if you...
Oh, you
might
move on
want
these
to go
two.
and just
Yeah, let's do
take
them
care
first.
of those 2 items
Sure.
and then go to the other.
Okay.
All right, so I move that resolution number 2013-211 be approved.
You want to do them both at the same time?
Okay.
Okay?
We can do both? Okay. And also move, as part of that motion, Resolution 2013-212 be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those two pass. Okay, refunding.
Okay. We, today, at the meeting on the agenda, Resolution Number 216 addresses, I guess, the last step to put in order a resolution so that we may be able to go forward in the market to issue refunding bonds. Those are to refund the existing series of general obligation bonds that we have outstanding that were originally sold in 2004. We need to pass this resolution so that we are able to present to the market through an underwriter who acts on our behalf to handle the bidding, the information as to who might be available on any particular day so that we could issue refunding bonds. That information is brought back to the Borough Administrator and myself. This resolution gives us the authorization to act on behalf of the town to negotiate that sale. It would be considered a private sale. We absolutely can only do it if there's an at least 3% savings on the interest rate, so that if the market is favorable, then we can move forward and sell these refunding bonds. The result of selling the refunding bonds would be a reduction to the town in the amount of debt service over the life of these refunding bonds. So you would not necessarily, they're not going to hand us a check we put in the bank, but we pay less debt service because you're restructuring down to a lower interest rate, and you're basically changing the amount of money. We're refunding 2016 forward. So on those issues, we get to realize savings. So it's to the town's benefit to reduce our debt service load.
And that deals with the bonds for this building.
Correct. The largest component on that series of bonds issued from 2004 was for Borough Hall.
Okay. Are there any questions from members of the council?
Thank you, Mayor. Rebecca, when you use the term private sale, can you explain to the public what that means and what the advantages are to the borough by doing it that way?
Certainly. On a private sale, as we are proposing to do, we have the ability to have that underwriter, on a day that looks favorable, test the market, see what results he gets. He reports them back. If we're not satisfied or it's not favorable, it's not to be done on that day. We can authorize, watch the market try in a few more days. If you go to a bidded open sale, then you are locked in on that day to what the market says, what it bears, to accept the low bid. You have no opportunity if it's a bad day in the market. You just take what you get. So by doing a private sale, we're able to capture the best possible savings.
Okay. Now, it doesn't come back to the council. It's you and the underwriter that would, and Bill, that would make that decision.
That's correct. I would report back to the council after the sale had been done. We would give you a report of the results of the sale, and also bond counsel would then notify local finance board, as is required after the sale, that we indeed did see the 3% savings. Those are automatically approved by local finance board with no special hearing needed, as long as you've met that requirement.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there an anticipated ballpark idea? I know you can't pinpoint it to what we would save, roughly.
On the last estimates we had from early November, we're in the ballpark of $400,000 in savings,
Okay.
always determined by the market on a particular day.
And that's over the lifetime of the remaining debt.
That's correct.
So you're talking lifetime would be,
Through 2020.
okay.
So 2016 through 2020 is when,
Although you will see some savings in 14 and 15 as well, because what happens is, since you're restructuring your debt and you're dropping off a good part of principal because it's its own restructured sale, you'll pay less interest in 2014 and 15 on the remaining old bonds that aren't callable. So you do see savings in those years as well.
And I'd also like to point out that it does level off the payments somewhat. Not perfectly level payments, but certainly better than the existing bond is structured.
Any other questions by council members?
I would just like to confirm something. I believe that the Borough Council Finance Committee was involved in discussions on this, so Councilman Grazel and Camerano, any comments or everything?
I mean, the only thing I would say is the mayor, Councilman Grazel, and myself worked very closely with Bill and Becky and with the auditor and bond counsel when needed to take a look at the overall picture and look at a way that we can work to reduce costs going forward for the borough. And I think there's a good opportunity to take advantage of the low interest rates and take advantage of the climate in the market now. So it's important that we act on it. I mean, it's interesting to see that the work through the Finance Committee with Bill and Becky and the mayor, it actually worked pretty well, and I think gave us all greater comfort in how we go about dealing with the issues, and I look forward to continuing to work on that as we go forward.
I just wanted to clarify something, and people might say, well, why didn't you do this earlier? And the reason we couldn't do it earlier is because we weren't getting that net 3% savings up till this time. And the bonds that are there are not callable till 2015.
Correct.
So that means we can't just refinance them like you do with a normal house mortgage. House mortgage, you could refinance as many times as you want. We have some regulations that say that this bond is not callable. We couldn't do it till 2015. But we also, through DCA, have a requirement that before we could do this refunding, have a 3% savings, and we had to wait till we hit that quota. Okay? So, and I appreciate the work of the Finance Committee and Bill and Becky and our auditor, who did a very good job in preparing us and working out many different scenarios over a period of time to get us to this point. So let's hopefully, when we get out to the market, we'll save the people some money. Okay? You want to move that?
Sure. I move that resolution number 2013-216 be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Mayor, if I could, looking at the agenda, I'd like to move or suggest that we maybe move up the proclamations. We have a couple folks here, if we could possibly do that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Be okay?
Becky, you could go home. Thank you very much.
We have two, you said.
Yes, why don't you go first?
Okay.
Okay. And
I'm going to be reading and presenting the proclamation regarding pancreatic cancer, so I think we have a couple folks from the... Where's Dee?
She's volunteering at a hospice.
Oh, really? Okay.
Stand in place.
Hey, so why don't you come up here? Nice to see you. Hi, how are you? Okay, this is from the Office of the Mayor, proclamation, whereas in 2013, an estimated 45,220 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the U.S., and 38,460 will die from this disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, it's the fourth leading cause of cancer death in the U.S., and is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 6%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas approximately 1,180 deaths will occur in New Jersey in 2013. Whereas the incidence and death rate for pancreatic cancer are increasing, and pancreatic cancer is anticipated to move from the fourth to the second leading cause of cancer death in the U.S. by the year 2020. Whereas the U.S. Congress passed Recalcitrant Cancer Research Act last year, which calls on the National Cancer Institute to develop a scientific framework or strategic plans for pancreatic cancer and other deadly cancers, which will help provide the strategic direction and guidance needed to make true progress against these diseases. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is a national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in the borough of Metuchen and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services, and public awareness and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in the borough of Metuchen, those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as those who have lost lives to the disease and are committed to nothing less than a cure. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of the borough of Metuchen are enhanced as a direct result of the increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and Borough Council designate the month of November 2013 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in Metuchen. Signed, Thomas Fahala, Mayor. So we appreciate you guys coming. I know you've all suffered losses because of pancreatic cancer, and we appreciate your efforts as part of the network to hopefully someday find a cure. So thank you for coming. You're welcome to say a few words if you'd like. Or
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Once again, thank you very much, Mayor Fahala and council members. I think this is the fourth year we've been here in front of you, and at the beginning we were not really sure what this whole effort would mean for the cause, but I can assure you that for the last 4 years I've seen a major step forward, and we've been very, very heartened by what we've seen nationally, and especially locally. New Jersey has a lot to be proud of because of towns like this that has taken active steps towards raising the awareness for this disease. Everyone, I think, on the council knows our story, and it's only too familiar to every family now. And pancreatic cancer is finally getting some of the spotlight that it deserves so that we could address this deadly disease. This proclamation is taken, sent to a database, and when reports are being made to Congress, Metuchen shows up on every map, every report, that Metuchen has consistently supported this cause. And we really, truly appreciate that. We truly appreciate you leading the effort and allowing us to put up the purple ribbons even before we got permission.
You have permission to do that every year as long as I'm mayor.
We appreciate that. There's a lot of other cancers we know that deserve the same attention, and we don't want to take the spotlight away from that. We know there's someone in the audience here who lost a loved one to lung cancer as well. There are lots of people wanting to bring awareness to their cause, and we recognize that, so we don't want to push aside anybody else's ribbons, but we really do appreciate the continuing effort to make pancreatic cancer one of the leading causes here in Metuchen. We will give you a report, a very short report of what happened this year so far. I've attended a press conference where the wife of Patrick Swayze and congressmen appeared who supported the legislation that was mentioned in the proclamation. After the act was passed, there was a press conference, and Mrs. Swayze came to New Jersey. She came here specifically because New Jersey has shown such an effort in making a difference for the cause. When we descend on Congress every June for our advocacy there, New Jersey is always well represented, and even being a small state, we unfortunately have a high incidence of the disease here. And so I was at that event earlier this year, and of course, the June Congress, the advocacy event in Congress, and last week we had a major walk for pancreatic cancer in northern New Jersey that takes place every year, and we always top the amount of money that we bring in almost nationwide. even compared to states like California, where they do several walks. But one big walk always tops in terms of fundraising. So again, we appreciate it very, very, very much, and know in your hearts that you are making a difference for a lot of families. Thank you.
We appreciate all that you and your organization does, and we really understand the loss that you suffered. Hopefully someday we'll have a cure or a better testing method to get people into a cure. So, thank you.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that. One more thing I was supposed to mention is that there was a very good bit of news recently that there was a very young person who lost someone to pancreatic cancer, and he took the step of, he was very much into science and experiments, and he got his way into Johns Hopkins and developed this test that he found a protein that shows up in the system very early in pancreatic cancer patients. Once things like that are isolated, there's a better chance of early diagnosis for the disease, and the disease becomes very much a big battle if you don't diagnose, if the diagnosis is too late, actually. So getting these kinds of breakthroughs, really, as small as they are, very, very important for the cause. So we've been heartened by that news as well this year, and we're sure with the funding and the attention that there'll be much more better news as we approach you every year to do this particular step. Thanks
Thank you again.
The interesting thing about that test is it costs $11. And the kid who developed it is 16 years old.
Yep.
Wow.
And he lost a family friend and was just blown away by how pancreatic cancer is.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks again. Thank you. Thanks.
We have another proclamation, Councilwoman.
And Scott, if you'd like to come up. And I would like to thank the mayor for getting this proclamation ready for us today, because I just spoke to him this morning saying that I had an email from this gentleman about he lost his wife to lung cancer, and we thought that, gee, can I bring it up in the agenda session and we'll mention it, it'll be all nice. And then I called Katie later, and she's like, oh, do we have a, proclamation? Because the mayor wants to do a proclamation. And I just think it is so great that so quickly he wanted to give recognition for this gentleman. So I'll read the proclamation now. Whereas lung cancer will claim 4,400 lives in New Jersey this year, far outnumbering deaths due to breast, prostate, and colon cancers combined. And whereas approximately 15% of lung cancer cases occur in people who have never smoked, and over 40% in those who have formerly smoked, and whereas lung cancer has only a 16% 5-year survival rate, and whereas funding for lung cancer research trails far behind other cancers, and whereas the National Lung Cancer Partnership, a lung cancer advocacy organization made up of physicians and researchers working together with survivors and advocates, is dedicated to doubling the 5-year lung cancer survival rate in the U.S. by 2022, and whereas the Borough of Metuchen demonstrates its commitment by making lung cancer a public health priority in supporting advocacy work on behalf of lung cancer patients and all those at risk for the disease, and by offering support and care for all those in our state and community affected by lung cancer. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that I, Mayor Thomas Vahala, do hereby proclaim November 2013 as Lung Cancer Awareness Month in New Jersey and urge Metuchen, New Jersey citizens to join our effort to defeat lung cancer. So if you would like to say a few words.
I just want to say I'm so very touched by how quickly this came about. I saw on the agenda that the pancreatic group was meeting here, and I thought I would reach out. Hopefully we could do something in the future. And it came about so quickly. My wife, Gail, and I were married here 15 months ago, right before she passed away. So being here is important to me. She loved this town. She grew up here. We bought our house in 2001, and Metuchen became such a part of my life but it was such a strong part of hers. And to lose her at age 47 to a disease that attacked so quickly, she was gone within a year, just is something that I can't adequately explain. But once I became involved and realized how little funding there is and how little knowledge there is out there in the community about this, I decided at that point, going forward, I would do whatever I could to get the word out. So that's why I reached out and was so happy to see how quickly the council came through with this proclamation. So I hope for people out there and for people watching on TV that they'll learn from my experience and maybe reach out to the community and see what they can do to help bring about a cure. We hope that down the road people don't have to suffer like she did, and there can be some tests and some early treatment where we can find a cure someday. That's my hope. So I really do appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And this is for you for
Oh,
whatever,
thank you.
however you can use this to
I
bring it to
definitely
a
will.
group and all, to
Okay.
get it, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
I guess, social media?
Yes. Okay, we now have a discussion on the social media policy. Councilman Grazel, do you want to give a brief report on where we are with this?
Thank you, Mayor. Some months ago, Mayor Vahala and Council President Muldoon requested that the TV and Technology Advisory Committee analyze and draft a social media policy based on the fact, as the council and the public knows, Metuchen is more and more engaged in social media platforms. I'd like to, and the process began by examining other towns who have policies. We got information from the League of Municipalities. Our members did a lot of work on drafting this. I'd like to thank Michael Guarino, David Lanton, Ira Grubman, Tom Rockefeller, Michael Schuyler, Kenneth Kim, Beatrice Moskowitz, and Don Yerger for their work. We also had the benefit of a social media professional in town, Jennifer Fong, who came in and analyzed our draft policy. We also had valuable input from our emergency management coordinator, Jim Graziano, and Rich DeSimone of METV. So what we basically did is we drafted the policy. We submitted it to Bill Borth, who, with Rich DeSimone and others, reviewed the draft and made recommendations, and we came up with the policy, which is in your packet. If any of you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
I also want to mention the work of Bill and Rich DeSimone, because they came up with I think a graph, I don't know if that's in your packet, which is easy to understand how this is going to operate, how we could work this without hiring other people, without using the personnel that we have here, and moving us forward. I understand that during Sandy, Twitter was a big thing, Facebook and other media, aside from the reverse 911, but when phones were out, the reverse 911 didn't work very well. So I think it's important that we have a policy, that we know where we're going, and if you have any questions, you could either give them to Ron or Bill or me, and then I'm hoping that for the next meeting that we could adopt this policy. Had a lot of work from a lot of people. I think it's been looked at from many different angles, and I think it's important that we put this policy on the books. Any questions, comments? No? Okay. We can move on to the next presentation. We have a presentation by the Arts Council, a fundraiser. It's tough to see you back there behind the box and everything.
It's only footage. It's difficult to probably believe that it was years ago that I was before you with all this equipment too, and talking about having a gallery in the rotunda. So here we are and, with a new arts event. First of all, you know, I'd like to say thank you to everyone on the council for the support that you've shown over these 6 years, really 7 years more.
Mrs. Listella, I don't know, I'm having trouble hearing.
Is it on?
I was told it was.
Let's try that.
No, it's not. I don't know.
It was just me.
Yeah. I didn't want to say.
That could be,
The first thing that goes.
She should state her name.
And she did, and she said to me, it's live. So,
No, it's not.
It's
no, it's
not.
not. It is not live. And I was gonna say, I can really project. I
But,
can-
Mrs. Listella, if you would just state your name and
Yes.
address, okay?
My name is Linda Listella, and I live at 242 Amboy Avenue in Metuchen. I'm speaking for the Arts Council, I'm not a member of the Arts Council, an official member, but an associate member. Now, if I can take this,
You should be able to reach it to there, right?
we'd like to make things interesting.
yeah. First of all, it really isn't a fundraiser that I'm here to present, but rather a proposal for a public art project. This came about by a project idea that I had shared with the Arts Council. Didn't really work because I needed permission from the county. And so as things moved along, Nancy Goldberg and Grace came up with a location where the public art project that I had originally suggested could take place. So the Metuchen Mural Project, Mud Making Magic. The plan is to cover the exterior of the cement block storage building near the tennis courts on all 4 sides with the ceramic mural, to involve as many people in the community as possible, to actually have hands in clay to help create the artwork. So the goal is to create a genuine piece of public art, a permanent piece of public art out of a building right now that's, you know, pretty disreputable, and to invite the total community, as much as of the community as wishes, to get involved in that. This is the space, for those of you who may not be familiar with it. It's a little storage building right next to the tennis courts. It's really visible from Grove Avenue, and you see the area that we're looking at in the large photograph as you're coming into town. Well, actually, no, you're heading, coming into my house, heading down Grove toward Amboy. But you also see that very, well, let me see if I can get the printer, I can't. The lower left photograph, that side is really visible, right, that's what actually faces Grove. Now, why do we want to do this? Certainly to add beauty. Again, another opportunity to bring the community together around the arts, and further to build Metuchen's image as an art-centric, arts-friendly community, as we've been building over these past 6-7 years. The timeline projected begins this December, and this is why the impetus to speak now and to get the permission from the council now. We'd like to begin with signing up participants, beginning the actual physical work in the community in March, and be able to install by next autumn, by September, October. So tonight's request is really a simple one, to give us permission to begin to alert the community about the project. And this is what we mean by that. We'd like to get people to sign up. For instance, during the Borough Improvement League's Eat, Drink, and Buy Art event. You know, we'd like to have a little booth there and invite people to give this perhaps as a Christmas present, because we would hope to charge each person $25 to help to pay for materials. And that's really all we see as a significant cost on this. I'm doing it pro bono, to use a phrase by our lawyer friends, but simply to pay for materials. So $25 a person, and it's about an 80 square foot section on each side. And I'm talking about doing one side a year. We're really talking about a 4-year project. So just simply one side. I'm going to take care of designing, directing, and overseeing the project. It's what I do, and you know, I'm really excited about working on this scale, being given this kind of a platform to work and to work with the community. So, you know, what do I propose? You know, the question is always, well, what's it going to look like? I see it basically as decorative, colorful, and basically abstract. I envision each side reflecting a season of the year. The season we'll begin with will be summer. That will face Grove Avenue. And in that shape will be images and words related to events that are familiar to us in Metuchen. I may even ask people to give me pieces of poetry, or, you know, poetic statements of, you know, what it's like to be in Metuchen in summer, you know, and subsequently each of the seasons as we move forward. And all of that will be worked into the design. I see the basic design being pretty much circular, not a perfect circle, but basically circular. Why are we not moving forward? Let's see. And then those other spaces. Oh, whoa! Why is this happening? There's other spaces that are not within the colorful circle. I would see, why is this happening?
This is where we use our imagination.
Yes, I think you're going to have to. In those spaces that are not within the circle, I'm going to invite people to specifically sign up for that, to bring botanicals from their yard, flowers, leaves, and have those impressed. So that, and I have pictures of that, and it might be because I didn't bring my, I don't know. Let's see. Let's try that. Oh, there we go. No. Well, I don't know why this is happening, but it's showing here, but it's not showing there.
Would you like us to, if you can't, we'll come down there?
It's on the computer. Ah, there we go. Okay. It may have been a. Anyway, this is an example of how, you know, those will look. You know, impressions of, as I said, leaves and things that would be in those spaces that are not within the circle. Now let's see if we can keep going. Okay. These are just, you know, real quick drawings from my sketchbook. I've got all 4 sides worked out. You know, the way the pieces are going to be cut. I won't have the definite design of the interior portion worked out until I get permission to take a huge sheet of paper and set it out on the old Franklin Schoolhouse floor, and, you know, really do a cartoon that will be the exact size and shape that I can then cut up and work with to help give the folks who are going to have hands in clay sections of that. So that's it.
Mrs. Listella, could you go back to one of the side things? I just have a question.
Sure. If my computer is going to work pleasantly with me, but it doesn't really seem like it is right now. Oh, I'm going ahead, unfortunately. Could you?
I just wanted to see the gable roof and ask a question of you.
Okay. There is a roof, yes. There is definitely a gabled roof. Okay, got that. Now let's see if I can go backwards. Nope. It doesn't want to do that for me. Oh. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, well, here's my question. Here's the gable roof,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The tile's going to be on the cement part, on the
That's
block
right.
part.
Yes.
The upper part looks like it needs to be addressed.
Attended to, yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask Bill to have our DPW take a look at that, because I think it would be better to address it before you start putting tile on than to have somebody, say, go up there and have to replace some siding or cedar shake or paint it or to make it look really good.
Nancy was very conscious of that, and the door, too. The door is something that, really needs basically a good paint job, probably, sandblasting maybe, and, then repainted.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Bill to
really
check with our DPW about that prior to you. I'm already telling you that I'm in
Yes,
favor of that.
that you're
Okay.
on board with it.
Okay, but, so that when we don't want to have the tile up there and then have any problem with the DPW guy setting up a ladder, hitting the tile, or dripping paint, whatever,
Right,
okay?
right.
Even though I know our DPW guys are really great. But I think it'd be best if we could do that prior to the installation of the tile on all of the sides.
Absolutely. Thank you, even for the thought. And I did a lot of research over these past few days, speaking with people who have done community murals. Out in Port Chester, Long Island, there's an organization called the Clay Center, who just did a massive, theirs was a 4-year project too, working with their community and installing. And she had massive amounts of really solid information to share with me. She uses the same clay company and had done all of the required testing to make sure the freeze thaw was accurate with the kinds of clays and glazes. And we use the same clay company, so it's the very same clay that I was intending to use. I also called down to, the Magic Gardens, if you're familiar with that, down in Philadelphia. It's an amazing space. If you have not been there, I would advise you to, make it a day trip. This gentleman, Isaiah Zanger, in the 60s, took a neighborhood that was really on the skids because of 95 being put through, and has turned it into the most amazing, well-traveled. This is a map in Philadelphia of all of the murals, the ceramic murals that he has done. And I talked at length, this is the guy, at length with the folks down there, about the way the mural has weathered, the kind of materials they've used. They were really helpful and gave me contact information, names, and ways to contact, the folks who are really informative, who would be informative. Like if we wanted an engineer to speak with them, I have the name and the contact for them. But it's an amazing place, and it goes for blocks. It's blocks and blocks, and it is gorgeous. They run multitudes of tours every day, and it's now run by a foundation. Isaiah is, as you saw, he's, getting up in age, but, he's still climbing the ladder to to do the tiling. So I think it's a really exciting project, and just the folks who have passed through my studio, I think, and have done a little bit of work in clay, will be so happy and so anxious to get themselves involved in this. So, again,
Is there a special adhesive or
I've got all that.
a special channeling that has to be done to hold the tile up?
I have all that specific information.
Okay.
Again, primarily, they were good, but the gal out in Port Chester was wonderful because, they've got a lot of rougher weather to deal with, and so, they had a lot more specifics that
Okay.
they were interested in working through before they did the deed.
And one final question, are the tiles grouted in between, or are they just abutted?
Yes, they are grouted, and again, she gave me all the information of the specific kind of grout.
Okay.
So,
Well, it looks very interesting.
there we go. Yeah, I hope everybody can get their hands in it. It should be a really neat project. And there's only one, those are mine. There's only one place in Jersey that I found. There's an Evergreen school, which, flipped by really quickly. They had a potter who did a door surround with the students, and they have that. And then there's one that I couldn't find online, but that I've seen in the reel. On the, whatever that town is, the first one that gets you into Long Beach Island, there's a gallery there that is completely covered with a tile mural. And the next time I'm down, I'm going to check with them in reference to that. But anyway, I think it should be a really exciting project for Metuchen. Thank you.
I have a question
Yes.
maybe for Grace, actually.
Oh, Grace.
I personally think the public art is a great idea in Metuchen. We don't have much or any of it right now. But I'm wondering how this art form, these clay tiles, I guess, and that building, how was that selected versus, painting a mural or, other things that could be public art?
Well, painting a mural is a whole different thing, and there was some questions about its longevity. There were questions about, choosing an artist and the theme, and it was very expensive. It was like $15,000 when we priced it out with an artist who specializes in that, who would not do it pro bono.
Right.
He could also involve the community, and that would be another thing, but where to do it? I mean...
So there was, I guess my question is, there was a selection process for both the building and the artist, or?
No, there wasn't. It was a number of people have come to us and said we should have some public art. Is there anything the Arts Council could do about establishing some projects in town? And Linda had this project to do tiles, to tile the entrances to the Greenway when the Greenway opened. But the Greenway belongs to the county, sort of, and she tried to get permission to do it. I thought it was a great project. She was going to do it 2 summers ago when the Borough Improvement League had their summer house and invite people from the community to come and make tiles. Everyone would make an individual tiles and they would be installed. And I thought that was a great idea. But the county wasn't open to granting permission to do that. And so as we were talking about different things that we could afford, I mean, we don't have funds to throw at these kinds of things. Some towns do. The idea of community members each making tiles that would go into a community mural was very appealing, and we have Linda as a resource, and she was willing to do it. Just sort of share the project, like we have chairs on the Arts Council. People, sometimes they're not even on the Arts Council, but they volunteer to chair, a craft fair or any of the other things that we do. Linda offered to chair it, and then we were brainstorming about where it could possibly be in Metuchen, where it would be lasting, where it would be seen by everybody. And Nancy Goldberg suggested the sheds in the borough-owned parks, which are pretty ugly, and perhaps we could beautify them, and they would be in the parks where everybody can enjoy them. And this particular one is very visible from a main artery, and it seemed like a perfect place to start. And my hope is that this will be a sort of springboard for other projects like this in town, around town, in other parks in town, and possibly other artists will come forward with ideas that can feasibly be done within the confines of the amount of funds we have available.
So one of the fun question, my last question is about sort of the economics. So I think Linda said that we were hoping that people, residents, families will be interested and will donate $25 per
Correct.
panel.
Right.
So if you're, I think 80 square feet is the size of each side of the shed. So how many panels do you need to fill that, and how many people do you need to pay 25? Like, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
economically, how's this going to come together?
The exterior, the section on the outside of the circle, there will be 20 tiles, and there will be 20 tiles there. There will be 60 within. 80 times 25 will give me 2,000. And if we commit to 4 years, I can work out the cost of funding the materials between clay, glazes, fire.
So we'll need 80
80
people or people to
80
contribute
per year per
per
side.
side.
That's right.
That's
80
right.
years.
Now, would you, like, if you only get 40, we'll have half a pound, like, how's it going to work? We'll work to get the 80 people and then start the work, or?
Nancy has hopes of possibly looking toward either getting grants from other groups or organizations to be sponsors.
Sponsors.
Yeah.
As we move along, once we get the first one rolled out, there will be so much enthusiasm for it that we might get sponsors.
I don't think you're going to have a problem getting 80 people.
No, yeah, no, I don't.
I really don't.
No.
That's why we really like to start, with Christmas time,
And I'll tell you, I'll be number one. Okay? All right? I think it's a fabulous project, and I think it's going to add to that area. And I really don't think that it's going to be difficult to get 80 people and 80 times 4 over the 4 years.
I actually think you might have the opposite problem, and you might have to do a lottery, because I think you'll have more than 80 people the first year.
What we might have to do is either have them go to the second year or find a second project.
Right.
right, move right onto a second project. Yes, but I think there are lots of buildings that that sort that we might need to accommodate.
Cool.
It's great. I was looking at, I was looking at a variety of websites in relation to, getting ready for this. In Newark, they did a call for walls. Now, they were they have a group that works with students and huge murals, painted murals. But I thought that's really cool, a call for walls. That's what we should do, once we finish this.
Well, what I'd like the council to do tonight is, Council President, if you would move to endorse this, and the council endorse it. And I'd also like you to work with Nancy in getting something up on the website so that we could get it advertised as soon as we could. Okay?
I would make one comment, Mayor, that in order for the borough to charge for these tiles, we would have to have the appropriate ordinance allowing us to do so.
Okay. So then would you look at getting that drafted for next meeting so we can introduce it?
If that's your pleasure.
Well, if the council endorses it tonight, then if we could get the ordinance for December 2nd as an introduction, okay?
Yep.
And then we could adopt it so that it will be there to, we can't do it over, we have to do it either in December or start over again in January. So I'd rather get it done in December and then have you on good footing to get people signed up, okay? So could we have a motion to,
So is there, I mean,
is there any other
everyone-
discussion?
The only concern I have is the ordinance we're envisioning a general embodiment ordinance that allows fundraising for private art projects, or for, what exactly will the ordinance?
The ordinance would be added to the existing ordinance that allows for the borough to charge various fees for various
Okay.
things.
So it's an
Across
amendment-
all departments.
it's an
No,
amendment to an
it would be
existing ordinance.
specific to this project.
Okay.
And I had a question. Did the Arts Council, though, have a 503C? No? You don't? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Okay, so I make a motion that the council endorse the idea of this public art project.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, moving along here. The agenda's been shot to pieces here. I move approval of the council minutes from February 4th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to open it to the public for any questions or comments. If you have any questions or comments, please come forth, state your name and address. Anybody that has any questions or comments, please come forth. Yes, just state your name and address.
Jill Kitsko, 131 Hazelwood Avenue. Dorothy invited me here tonight after getting my letter, so did everybody see the letter?
I received it last Thursday, I believe.
Okay.
I was away on Friday, and Monday was a holiday, so I didn't get a chance to talk to the zoning officer.
So Dorothy just said I should come and we could talk about it instead of you talking about it and then
Right.
talking.
You know,
I also brought my neighbor Audrey Miller.
Audrey Miller, and I'm at 127 Hazelwood Avenue, and I had written the Borough Council a year and a half ago, had been to a zoning board meeting about the concerns for the very huge houses being built behind us, which have ruined Hazelwood Avenue. And so I had also written a letter to Mayor Bahal a couple of weeks ago, and so Jill called me and said, why don't we go? I do have some pictures also, if you want them, of
Ma'am,
what it
we
looks
we
like.
cannot, that is a zoning board issue, Mrs. Miller. We cannot react to that. Unless there is an appeal from either the applicant or the residents on a particular zoning thing, we cannot, that's correct, react to a zoning board issue.
You know, the reason I'm here is because Jill had suggested if I wanted to come, but I came to the zoning board meeting with other neighbors a year and a half ago. The zoning board told us that although a couple of them said they could empathize with the neighbors, they didn't make the laws. They only enforce the zoning laws. And so what we're really saying is it's not going to help me. It looks like an apartment building behind my house now. And Beechwood is down here. Hollywood. Hazelwood is up here. And yet this house behind me is way up above my house and my garage. And from wherever I look, I see it. And it's the second house that's gone up. And so the zoning board said to us, we have empathy. They even suggested that the people that were going to build behind me, if they could go back and look at the plans and maybe lower the third floor, which was for aesthetics in the architecture, maybe that would help the neighbors a little bit. I'm not sure somebody's going to want to buy my house when I'm ready to sell. And so my thing was, it's not going to help me. It's too late probably to help me. But I think that the borough needs to look at the zoning laws, because almost everyone on Hazelwood Avenue in our block now is affected adversely. And I think if we're going to sell, we are going to get less money. I wouldn't buy my house today with that house behind me, and we've lived there 45 years. If my husband were living, he'd be coming down here every week to talk about it.
I know Roland would have called me many
Yes,
times.
he would have.
So, if I may, Your Honor, so what you're really asking us for is to consider changing, we do change the ordinances, the zoning ordinance,
That's what
the
we were
zoning to
told.
some sort of, and in the past, we've had preliminary discussions about maybe I got this wrong, a Florida area ratio kind of formula, to prevent this type of housing from changing the character of the neighborhood and
Yes.
impeding on neighbors and
Right.
those. That's what you're really looking for.
That's what we're looking for, because, like I said, this house is really 3 stories maybe plus. And when you think it starts lower than my house and ends up way above, and I think that the only people would want to buy around there will be people who will then tear down houses and buy houses equally big. Somebody said to me, maybe you should build a 2nd story, because then your house would be taller than that. Well, I wouldn't do
Then
that.
I'd be mad at you.
Yeah, I know, then you'd be mad at me. But we've had a good neighbor, but we're concerned about the zoning laws and about Metuchen. I have to say, in my whole life, I never came to meetings, and I wasn't involved except in the schools or whatever. Our kids grew up here. But this just seemed really wrong, and it's the only thing that's talked about on that block. Have you heard what's happening now? And it's not easy to do anything about it, and my kids have said, okay, we're proud of you. It's about time, you know. I need to speak up, and I love Metuchen. But, you know, I would say to somebody, you better think about it before you move in here, because if you think you're going to buy a house and your neighborhood is going to stay somewhat the same or better, you better check out the laws.
Mrs. Miller will refer it to our planner, but we cannot react here on a specific zoning
Sure.
thing. And if you would do me a big favor and say hello to Jeff for me.
I will do that.
Okay.
And could I just give you somebody, these are extra pictures I took from my kitchen window and also from every
You
side
can give them
of
to
my
the clerk.
house.
You could give them to Katie.
Just
We'll
gives an
get
extra set,
copies.
And I don't think anyone would want to be looking at that. I don't even know the people because there are fences, so I have nothing against the people, you know, personally.
Okay. Thank you.
And it has also changed the water in the block. We have water in our basement for the first time. In the house's 50-year history, and other people in the neighborhood as well. All this building is changing. Those houses were the lowest spots on the block, and when you build big houses on them, there's nowhere for the water to go, so it came our way.
Are you on Hazelwood or Hollywood?
We're on Hazelwood.
So even though you're higher, I used to live in Hazelwood.
Yep. Even
So
though we're higher.
I know exactly where you're, but you have water in your basement?
We had to put a sump pump in.
Below?
The house has never had a sump pump, and we had to put one in shortly after the big house on the corner went in, because that was the lowest spot on the block. And that thing
Well,
is
there used to be-
gigantic.
There used to be that sort of drainage ditch there, right?
There's a cul.
There's still a drainage
There's a
ditch,
drainage
but,
thing behind it. There's a
Yeah.
cul-de-sac.
yeah.
And the
Not
drainage
cul-de-sac,
ditch,
a culvert.
the drainage ditch, we have been told, the water runs the wrong way. So
it
it-
wasn't built right.
you know, it doesn't really serve a purpose, actually. We could just as well be using that space because it doesn't really help, I don't think. I don't have water. Now I'm concerned because as everybody has been having more problems as these big houses are being built, so this one is right behind me, so. But we're concerned, and I know neighbors down toward the end of the block who came to that zoning board meeting also, and they were concerned not for their own personal house, but because as there's more and more concrete And the footprint of these houses are getting bigger and bigger. These are small lots, as you know, if you live there.
Yes.
So there's very little space for water to go. So, thank you.
I mean, as the mayor said, I think we will obviously refer it to the planner, but engage in conversation with him about it, because we also know it's not just your neighborhood where these larger houses are being constructed. So it's something we need to really discuss and figure out what is the right approach on this, so.
Because I think that Metuchen, I mean, I can understand if somebody wants to put a second floor on their house, I can understand that. But I think it will change Metuchen, and it either will become a town of, I have a small ranch, and I've continued to live there because it's a wonderful neighborhood. You know, taxes go up and whatever, but if taxes go up and your value goes down, that's not good. And if we want to keep people in this town who maybe aren't the wealthiest people in the world, but who really care about the town, I think we need to think about what we let go of. And if you look at those pictures, it's very hard to get up in the morning and look out at all I see is a building behind me. Thank you for
Your Honor,
listening.
if I could ask
Thank
one
you.
question?
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, I know the neighborhood, but what's the size of your lots there?
It's,
Approximate, I'm not gonna,
yeah, I was going to say 50 by 100. I think it's 50
so
by
they're 50 by
100.
100 for the most part.
50 by 100.
They
right.
vary with it, because the road curves.
Right,
so
right.
The
Most
ones on the
exactly.
curve have a little
Right.
more room.
So you may get some that have an odd shape to them and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
just trying
small.
to figure.
Well, on Hollywood, they're wider, like
A little bit wider, yeah.
Right, but your houses behind there are the smaller lots, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
So
so like the big house on the corner actually touches 5 houses.
Yeah.
And then the big house that's going up now touches 3 or 4 houses
Yeah.
on
Right.
Hazelwood.
And I know with one of them, people have had problems with lights shining in the window. Actually now, up, like way up like this above my house, there's, although it's not supposed to be a 3rd floor technically, there's a big window cut.
Several big windows in there.
And
third
so,
floor.
you know, these things look in, over my garage and over my backyard into the house. And part of the time I cry about it, part of the time I can laugh about it. Because to me, it's ridiculous. So I appreciate anything can do, because it won't help me, but it might help somebody else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members from the public? Hearing none, I'm going to close that section of the meeting.
I move that consent agenda items A through F be accepted.
Yeah, communication,
Oh, what did I say?
consent.
Oh, communications consent agenda,
Okay.
A through F.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're now at that point where we have the reports of the officers. Council President Muldoon?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a report from the Office of Emergency Management, and it's really some great news and great accomplishments by several people in the borough. The Borough of Metuchen's been able to, or has received $183,000 in FEMA reimbursements so far for expenses and damages related to the Superstorm Sandy. The OEM coordinator, Jim Graziano, and Police Sergeant Dave Lantonio have done an outstanding job in managing this whole process, as well as working with FEMA, which I'm sure is not easy, to document this and to for the borough to have already received $183,000. The other accomplishment is that the borough has received a $65,000 grant. It's a energy I can't say that word, resiliency grant from FEMA also, and what that will be used for is to purchase a generator for the Department of Public Works. I think currently they don't have a generator, so they're going to be receiving a generator that will, which is really needed because when there are storms and hurricanes, we all know how important the DPW group and workers are. They need to have power down there. And the grant will also be used to make improvements to the generator here at Borough Hall, improve some wiring, and that will be used really for the, to ensure that the Borough Hall and the Police Department and the Emergency Operations Center in the basement can be operational during storms when there's power outages. So again, I just want to really recognize Sergeant Leantonio and Jim Graziano for their leadership and great work in protecting the borough and from a financial perspective, putting us in good stead here. So great work by them. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Council President, tell them about the sign that Jim Graziano and Antonio, the electronic sign that they acquired.
Yes, that's right.
Under a grant also.
They, I think the borough has received the, it's called a variable electronic messaging board. I think we've seen them in other towns in the county. So it's a mobile, messaging board that can be transported to various parts of the borough to convey different types of information. I've already requested or asked Jim Graziano, I'd like the police department to look into placing that at various locations in the borough from time to time with messages about slowing down, stop for pedestrians and crosswalks. So using it as another tool in our efforts to improve pedestrian safety. So that's just one aspect. So I think that was, again, Councilman Wallace, another grant that they applied for probably last year, and we've received that. So you'll start to see this variable message board be deployed for different applications and different reasons in the borough. So thanks for reminding me about that.
Okay, Councilman Wallace, it's a good segue into your report.
Thank you, Mayor. The Recreation Commission was supposed to meet tonight, but they had to cancel the meeting, and the Traffic and Transportation tomorrow night's been canceled. There are a few things I'd like to mention under the Recreation. They did a very good job on the Halloween parade. I know a lot of you were down there. And December 1st is the holiday parade. That's Sunday. And then that's the commissions that I'm involved in. I have a few other things I'd like to bring up that I think the town should address these problems. They've been around for a long time. Let's start with Center Street and the house where the fire was 5 years ago. I believe, or I don't believe, I think the borough should tear it down. And I don't know how it works. The council may know, or the administrator, Mr. Borth would know. You put some kind of a lien on their house if it's sold or whatever, because I don't know the status of the house right now. But the diner, since it's been redone and renewed, a lot of people go there and they pull in, and as they pull in that driveway to the diner, that's the first thing they see from back there. And if you look at it from Center Street, it really looks horrible. It's right next to our senior citizen building, which has a lot of events held there along with seniors that are there every day. And with that new Montessori school across the street, a lot of people coming and going there all day. That stands right out in front of them, and I believe it should be torn down. Like I said, I don't know whether the council would send a letter there, tell them it's going to happen within 20 days or something if they don't do something. I don't know how that works, the legality of it. You people would have to.
Mr. Worth, you want to answer that?
Yes, the property has been purchased. It's gone through foreclosure. We're anticipating that the structure is going to be torn down, hopefully by the end of the year or early next year.
Well, I'll put it on the back burner, but if it's still here in January, you're going to hear from me
Councilman,
again.
then you're going to have to appropriate money for that in a budget somewhere, because the borough simply doesn't have that and has been hesitant to do so since that property is a very troubled property, and were the borough to put a lien on it, it would be unlikely that it would be able to collect all of that.
But there's a new owner? Is that what you indicated?
Yes, actually the diner is buying it.
Oh.
yes. It was going through a foreclosure. It had tax liens on it and other liens, and that just needed to be sorted out. I know that the zoning officer and the construction official and I had been working on that for many years, and it was just a complicated legal mess. It's coming to a close now.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and hopefully I don't have to talk about it again. The second thing is anybody that travels the High Street area of the Y knows there's a major problem between Cliffwood Place and Honey Court. You cannot get two cars driving by with the cars parked on both sides of the street. I'm proposing that we have no parking on the south side of High Street between Honey Court and South Thomas Street. It would only affect two houses, and the one house, number 47, sits way back, and he has his own private driveway and garage and parking area that comes in off the end of Honey Court. He never parks out on High Street. Just people stopping, and I know I've been watching this carefully every single day. I've been going down there and checking the cars. The first few cars after Honey Court are commuters parking there all day long. Number 59 High Street, which is the last one right next to South Thomas Street, is a rooming house or apartment house, whatever you want to call it. And they could get the decals for allowing parking on South Thomas Street, and they could park there two cars that are in front of the house all day on the side of the house, and there would be no inconvenience to them. When you go to Lake Avenue and then you continue up Lake Avenue toward Cliffwood Place, there's 143 Lake Avenue has their parking on High Street, and the driveway goes into a garage on High Street. It's a very large driveway because they know the parking problems, and they can fit 6 cars in there, which you see there all the time. It would only affect two houses that both have 2-car driveways. If you use the other side, that's the south side where I'm proposing no parking. Again, 2 cars cannot pass each other, and if somebody's into it, sometimes they're there staring at each other head on and just trying to decide what to do. And I know from past experience, when the fire truck comes up there and tries to make a right turn, sometimes it can't do it. The other side, there's 5 houses over there, and the driveway for the other house from Lake Avenue on the other side, garage on that side. So there would be easier to do the south side and inconvenience the fewest amount of people and do that side with the other houses and their driveways. So I think it's something we should talk about at a future meeting or continue talking about it now. My opinion is I'd like us to see us perform an ordinance for no parking on the 2 areas that I proposed. That would be the south side of High Street between Lake Avenue and Cliffwood Place, and the north side, that would be the north side of High Street between Cliffwood and Lake, and the south side of High Street between South Thomas Street and Honey Court.
What I'd recommend is that the police and the traffic and transportation take a look at it and have the police come back with a recommendation to us.
I'll talk to the chief.
And I know it's a problem because there have been members at the Y who've approached me, knowing that I'm on the council, to say, this is, a problem. With the cars parked on either side and traffic coming both ways, they can't pass.
No, you can't.
Someone has to stop, let the other one through, and we know sometimes drivers...
Bill, can you talk to the chief tomorrow? Have him take a look at that? Sure. Okay. Any other report, Councilman?
No, sir, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Rasmussen?
Okay, the Shade Tree Commission met, and the members attended New Jersey Shade Tree Federation annual meeting in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, where they accumulated continuing education credits on various topics important to tree planting and maintenance. Also, the Shade Tree Commission is asking if before their meeting, which is the 4th Tuesday of the month, if we could get maybe from Becky the balance of what's in the tree bank, so if we would want to take a look at it to plan, for the spring planting, to see how much money we would have in there for trees. We could do that. And Also, for the spring planting, we want to take a different approach to tree placement, especially on the main thoroughfares. We want to take a more personal approach to residents and notifying them about a tree being placed at their home. And the Youth Services Board Municipal Alliance, the members this weekend, including myself, attended a mentoring retreat on Saturday that is just the beginning of 2 years of preparation to then apply for a federal drug-free communities grant of $125,000 per year for a 5-year cycle, with a 5-year continuation if we meet all the requirements. And through a 2-year grant that we received from NCADD, we will be working with the Coalition for Healthy Communities to get ourselves poised to qualify and then hopefully be chosen for the federal grant. And tomorrow at the St. Francis HSA meeting, there will be a presentation of a program called 15-Minute Child Break, and it's a parent program to instruct parents how to talk to their kids about drugs. And also, Saturday, November 30th is Small Business Saturday. Please support our local businesses. And also, please support your local theater, the Forum Theater. Currently, Enough Said with James Gandolfini and Julia Louis-Dreyfus is there. Please check the website or the marquee for the times. And that's my report.
Your Honor, if I may?
Yeah.
Councilwoman, if I could, regarding the Shade Tree Commission, I know every year we have a budget for planting, and I'm wondering if the commission has ever given any thought to skipping a year of planting and using those funds for pruning and maintenance of trees, which is a significant issue. I know the borough does some of it, but it's an issue where we fall behind and the trees become somewhat of a danger. We've seen that during recent events, and I'm just wondering if the commission would take a look at that issue. It's great to plant trees, but you also have to take care of them, and it just may go a long way if every couple of years we could put the money into maintaining, pruning, identifying and taking down a tree if it's in bad shape, working with the borough, who does a great job with it, but they just don't have all the resources they need. So just wondering if you could take that idea up with the commission and see what they think.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be meeting the fourth Tuesday. I will bring that idea to them, and we'll, take a look to see what we can do, and also maybe I'll talk to Fred Hall to see exactly what their budget is of what they spend in pruning and maintenance, and just kind of talk about it.
Thank you.
Dorothy, is that in the charter for the Shade Tree Commission? Does it include things like pruning and maintenance, or is it all about planting trees?
It is really about planting trees, basically, because that's how our trees get replenished, and we don't really plant that many trees a year. We plant maybe about 35 trees a year, half in the spring, half in the fall. And also, we do have homeowner requests that we honor, so generally we won't put off a homeowner that asks for a tree. Like, we wouldn't make a homeowner wait for 2 years for a tree.
So if there's any homeowner out there now that's interested in getting a tree, they could contact either my office or Bill's office.
Mm-hmm. And also, we already have people on the spring planting that maybe right now can't take a tree. I mean, there are some people that need to take trees down on their property that they're paying for, but it's still in the borough, and we've been working with them, but they have to get their contractor to take the tree down before we can put a new tree.
Okay.
So we have, people at all various stages.
Okay. Councilwoman Sarah?
Thank you, Mayor. As most people know, I think the Board of Health issued a rabies advisory last week after a raccoon came into contact with a pet dog in the vicinity of Oak and Maple. Fortunately, the pet wasn't harmed because it was up to date on its rabies shots, which leads me to another point I'd like to make, which is that the Board of Health Secretary reports that we have 417 dogs and 104 cats licensed in the borough. And to those of us who are sitting up here, and probably those of you who are left in the audience, that number seems kind of low. And you may be wondering why this is important. If your pet is licensed, we know for a fact then that it is vaccinated against rabies. If it becomes lost, we can probably return it to you quicker. And with that said, the current licenses will be expiring soon in January, and the applications will be going up on the borough website. So this is the third rabies advisory we've had this year. So this just sort of points out the need to get your pets registered and licensed with the borough, keep them up to date on their shots, and take care of that and look for forthcoming information from the Board of Health Secretary on that. Our next Board of Health meeting is December 4th at 7:30 p.m., where we'll be doing a second reading of the heat ordinance. The Chamber of Commerce would like to announce that there will be a ribbon cutting this Friday, November 15th at 5 p.m. at Clicks and Bricks Learning Center, which is owned by the same family that owns the Friends of the Family Child Care Center. The Clicks and Bricks Learning Center offers families educational programs for children around Legos, incorporating science, technology, engineering, and math. Clicks and Bricks is located at 20 Hillside Avenue, so anyone who would like to come to the ribbon cutting, please do. I plan on going. Perhaps my son will come, and I think that will be a lot of fun. Is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
When is that?
5:30. I'm sorry, 5 p.m. on Friday on Hillside Avenue. Can I play with Legos? You can play with Legos. Also, Councilman Wallace already mentioned the Winter Festival Parade, December 1st, which starts at 2 p.m. from the Edgar School, comes down Main Street, and then goes to the Senior Center for hot cocoa and snacks. So that's an annual tradition in Metuchen, so don't miss that. There's also 2 more Saturdays left to the Farmers Market, which everyone knows was extended, so please come out for that. And they're also looking for, I should mention, more sponsors for the parade. So anyone who's interested in sponsoring the parade, please call the Chamber at 732-548-2964. And lastly, the senior citizens are really looking forward to another tradition they have, which is on Wednesday, November 20th. They're going over to the high school to enjoy a free pasta dinner before a dress rehearsal of the latest Footlighters program, which this year is called Amazing Journey, the Best of Broadway's Rock Musicals, including modern hits from Rent, Spring Awakening, Tommy, Hair, and this is suitable for all ages that weekend. So that's a very nice relationship that the seniors and the high schoolers have. And that concludes my report.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to add something to Councilwoman Cerno's thing. She mentioned a parade like I did, and I forgot another December event. The fireworks on New Year's Eve is in December also. I believe both of you may have gotten, or you will be getting it the next day or so. Again, the Recreation Department is in charge of it.
Right,
Okay.
that's on our consent agenda, I think.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, I would like to mention something. Today, I was talking to one of my neighbors who owns a dog, and he was asking how come the borough couldn't have maybe one late night to have people come get their dog licenses, because he says most people work, and maybe it's difficult for them to come by 4 o'clock to get their dog licenses. And I did tell him that they could do it by mail, but he said maybe some people may prefer to just come in.
They could not only do it by mail, but you could also do it on the day that the rabies shots are given at the high school. So you don't necessarily have to come in. You could pay for it right then and there, and they will mail you the license information and do it right at the high school when they're doing the shots. Okay? Councilman Grazel.
Mayor, the subject matter of the Arts Council and TV Technology Advisory Committee meetings and were covered during the public presentations. I have nothing else to add.
Thank you. Councilman Camerano.
Your Honor, the library board is meeting as we speak. I am happy and pleased to announce that they have hired a new library director. We expect that she will be starting, I believe, December 1st. And it's been a long process and a very thorough process, so I think they've made a very positive selection. I'm not going to give the name because I'm not sure all the paperwork is signed, but it's pretty much a done deal verbally. The pool commission has moved their meeting till next Monday night because of the holiday, and EMS meets later this month, so I have nothing further.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Council President, you have something to add?
So, yes, forgot to mention this earlier. The American Legion chapter here in Metuchen has been contacted by some organizations in an area, local area company that's looking to provide support to local armed force families during the holiday time. So if anyone knows of a family, a military family with a deployed member, so someone who is in service and deployed overseas, that may be in need of financial support, emotional support, any type of, I think during the holiday times, these families experience increased stress, whether it's financial or emotional. So if anyone knows of a family who might be in need of this type of assistance, please contact the American Legion here in Metuchen. I wrote down Walter's phone number and I left it in my car, so I don't have that on me. But I think most folks know where the American Legion is. I'll have the number for the next meeting, but just trying to get the word out there that there are organizations looking to help military families.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman.
I'd like to address a question to Councilman Camerano.
Yes.
I was hoping, any chance we can get our new librarian in and introduce her to the public at a council meeting?
I actually have already suggested that, and she seemed very enthusiastic to the idea, so I think
Good, great.
probably maybe not the first meeting, maybe the second meeting in December, but if we can do the first, we'll try.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Dave, you
No, Your Honor, nothing to report.
you have any report?
Yes, the road project on Cliffwood Place and High Street is scheduled to start tomorrow.
Okay. I have a few items. We're at that time of the year when we have leaves falling. And don't forget that you cannot just rake your leaves into the road. You must pick them up and put them into paper bags. And it is the homeowner's responsibility to try to clean the gutter area right in front of your curb for about the first 14, I think it is, inches. This is would be a big help to the DPW. So you're already raking them. Just rake up that one little area. It'll help out tremendously. Tomorrow I'll be attending a planning session named for our former planner, Izzy Cantu, at Rutgers. I know that the chairman of the Parking Authority and their attorney will be joining me to that planning session. A couple weeks ago, we met with New Jersey Transit. It was a very interesting meeting in that they fully endorse our proposed development on the Pearl Street. However, we were led to believe before meeting with them that there was money available, and we were soon to find out that they have no money for construction projects. However, we are still trying to see what we can do to encourage them or Amtrak in the way of extending the platforms. Also, I have asked our borough engineer to do some research along with our Traffic and Transportation Committee to come up with ways in the way of signaling similar to what is on Parsonage Road to try to defray or reduce the number of strikes by trucks on Main Street. If you look at the item that's up on Parsonage Road, I've had some contact with the people from Edison. They seem to think that it works quite well. It's reduced the number of strikes on Parsonage Road, which is only 8 foot 7 inches high, and ours is 11 foot 3 inches high. We also, the police chief, Rob Rettenberg, and I were interviewed for Channel 2 News to talk about this issue. I don't know if it ever aired, but they came down within the minutes, almost like a half hour's notice, and Katie gave me a call, and Rob Rettenberg, the chief, and I were interviewed to talk about that issue, and we're trying to push forward and see what we can do. We might be able to find some money through the Parking Authority and leverage that against monies that we might be able to get from Amtrak or Transit or DOT.
You had one tonight, Mayor.
We did have another one? Well, then we're up to 15.
I got stuck behind it. It was weird. It was a flatbed, but I think the exhaust pipes hit.
Literally on that Friday, Len Roseman and I got off the train, walked down the stairs, and then the accident was there. So, you could be at the right place at the right time.
Or the wrong place if you were me tonight.
Yeah. The other report I have is from our fire department. In the month of October, they responded to 24 alarms. 127 hours were volunteered at fire alarms, 532 hours at drills, training, and meetings, and cadets and advisors volunteered 58 hours. So it was quite a busy month for them. And that concludes my report.
Your Honor, I move that new business consent agenda items C, D, E, G, H, and I be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And, Your Honor, I move that bill resolution in the amount of $6,709,029.82 be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We have an appointment. I'm appointing William Hoover to the Dog Park Committee. Could you
Motion, move.
move that?
I move that we appoint William Hoover to the Dog Park Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now going to open it to the public. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'm going to close that section of the meeting.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Before we adjourn, I don't believe we meet again before Thanksgiving, so I want to make sure I wish all of you and all of our residents a happy and healthy Thanksgiving to spend time with their families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And you're correct, we are back to
back.
playing
Was it
Highland
home?
Park on
Was it
that
home?
day, correct?
All right, I forgot of that.
I believe it's home.
That's great.
So we're going back to a tradition
I
again.
know, I missed that.
Can we get
Okay.
a second, Mayor? We need a
I
second.
We
move
need a
to-
second.
Second.
adjournment.
Okay,
I wanted to stay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Make it.